there's all these stories about, guys over in Macedonia who are running these fake news sites.
Number 24 is Content Farms in Macedonia.
Бидејќи ако се направи грешка, таа ќе биде кобна. Нема враќање назад.
So Europe need to remain more sexy lady in the world. Ајде, мајката!
Господа ја чува Македонија и низините граѓани.
On Friday, March 26, the U.S. Embassy in Macedonia posted on its Facebook page a picture of Matthew Palmer, the U.S. Department of State Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and a short summary of his call with Vumero Diplomat leader Christian Miskoski, in which, among other things, Palmer essentially told him to work with the government of Zoran Zaev to ensure the success of the upcoming census in Macedonia. On Monday, March 29, Zoran Zaev acceded to the demands of Miskoski, Vumero, and many Macedonians who want the census postponed due to the rapid rise in hospitalizations and deaths due to COVID, and agreed to postpone the census until September. Zaev also agreed to other demands. What is going on here? Did the State Department have a change of mind over the weekend and start pressuring Zaev to postpone the census after it made the correct calculation that Macedonians abroad were boycotting the census while ethnic Albanians were registering in droves? Did it make the correct calculation that this could lead to some real problems? Aside from the political intrigue and COVID vaccine debacle, this Sunday, April 4, Bulgarians will go to the polls in an election that, increasingly for certain deranged Bulgarians, focuses on Macedonia. We'll discuss all of this and more in this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the foot of the Catalina Mountains in Oral Valley, Arizona.
And this is Cvetin in Skopje, Macedonia, getting ready to go to Serbia and take my bootleg vaccine from some Indian manufacturer.
Hey, what flavors is Serbia offering these days? What do they got over there?
Yeah, we're joking that when the Johnson & Johnson vaccine comes, it's going to be lavender scented and in different flavors. Mango, papaya.
I love it. I love it. Yes.
No,
seriously though, what are they offering? They've got Sputnik, Sinopharm.
Oh, that's just for their domestics. For foreigners, they'll hook you up with apparently a huge batch apparently of Indian-made AstraZeneca, which according to their media is expiring. It's getting old now. You have to use it up March or April at the latest, depending.
March ends tomorrow.
Yeah.
We are recording this, I should say, episode 108 of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast on the penultimate day of March 30. So this will drop on the last day, March 31. So if those expire in March, well, by the time you're listening to this, it's too late.
Get your vaccine on. And people are just driving, taking off. They opened up their like a large sports hall in Niš and an even larger hall in Belgrade. And you just drive there. You need to register online, but they're even accepting people who don't. Which this is how desperate apparently they are to give out these vaccines. And it's actually even better service than most of Europe has. I mean, I don't think you can get a vaccine on demand right now, right? In the U.S., you still can't just walk in, right?
No, you have to register, and of course it depends on the state. Here in Arizona, you need to register. I got my first shot last Friday, and before you start with the nanobot jokes or whatever they are, I got my first shot, and do you know why you can't see me right now, Cvetin?
Huh?
It's because I'm invisible.
I
can also shoot webbing out of my wrists. It's amazing what's happened after this first shot. No, and I get my second shot at the end of April. So Moderna is what I got.
So that's AstraZeneca.
No problems, folks.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's like the same as AstraZeneca, different branding, right? Or no?
No, it's different.
Oh.
It's there's Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Sputnik, Sinopharm.
Moderna is British,
Johnson.
no?
I don't know. I can't remember. So
I think
anyway,
I asked the last time. So these guys have Indian-made AstraZenecas, and practically opening the doors. Grand gesture of hospitality, excellent organization. Everybody says, and people are. a lot of, so there was like a deputy minister in the government driving there to take this. There was the chief of staff of healthcare minister Venko Filipcho waiting in line. Yeah, this was really a lot.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, the guy worked for Todorov before, and this
is a Monty Python skit.
Yeah, exactly. And people are reporting the usual side effects. We have one issue. Our friend Vlatko Djurchov, his father is badly ill after taking the vaccine. Or it's still unclear. I mean, Vlatko said after. I think there's still some controversy whether it was before or after. Obviously, he had heart issues and he's pretty old. But that's the one serious issue. He's a distinguished doctor here, pulmonologist, and he decided to go take the vaccine apparently because locked in for a whole year in his home, hoping to avoid the virus. And it's either a shock or something. Everybody, we're all praying that he gets
Absolutely.
better.
Yeah, I reached out to Vlatko and his wife Susanna and told them that I'm praying for them and wow, but he really wanted the vaccine. There aren't any in Macedonia, so we went to Serbia and this is what happened. And so
even for a doctor who worked his whole life in the medical field and a person who's obviously elderly and pre-existing serious condition, a heart condition, he should have been able to take it in Macedonia. I mean, this is the minimum you can do. This is what Vlatko said in his comment. This is the least this country owes to the people. And, you can just imagine the comments. Pendarovski, the president today, came out, said this is unacceptable. We can't have a repeat of these images. It's a huge hit for the country that, we can't function at this such level of incompetence. Albania has 200,000 doses right now. I mean, everybody else is really outshining Macedonia. This is really
it's incredible. I mean, aside from the issues, the European Union, of course, it's been well documented the problems that they've got versus, for instance, the United Kingdom, which of course left the European Union and is just vaccinating en masse but in the region, actually within Europe, actually on the planet, Serbia really is in the top 10 of countries vaccinating not only its own citizens, but Macedonians and others from the region, or frankly anybody who needs a vaccine can go there. And the EU is just tripping over itself. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those tipping points where soon the EU Commission and Ursula von der Leyen, the president, faces some real calls for her resignation or for the Commission to step aside or something. And the same thing, we've seen all of this. The past, what is it now, almost 4 years that Zoran Zaev has been in power, and of course he's given away the name, given away the identity, given away the history, etc. The corruption, the crime, the lack of foreign investment, changing school books, all of this stuff, and then this, a year of lockdowns, and now he can't even vaccinate Macedonians. They're fleeing to other countries. I wouldn't be surprised if more people have been vaccinated in Serbia than in Macedonia. Macedonians, that is.
There is no exact data, but the estimate is that several thousand. There were like 2,000 people crossing the border by 10 in the morning on Saturday when it was the first rush.
Oh my God! Wow.
And we extrapolate out of this that 10, 11,000 took the first dose, which is about by now we had 11,000 total doses. Mm-hmm. The Pfizer's, which again Serbia donated to us, and the Sputniks, which Russia sold us. So I mean it's actually there. I mean they actually vaccinated more Macedonians on their own volition, on their own organization individually, and through several trade organizations like the MAN Journalist Association and the Chamber of Commerce, which got all the a bunch of businessmen who need to travel to make money move actually, went to Serbia. And then actually this sprang our international betters into action when they saw the humiliation of Zaev. So practically, I think it was on Sunday when finally the internationals deemed to bring some vaccines to Zaev directly through the COVAX mechanism. Again, the AstraZeneca's, but now delivered for us, for Montenegro, for Kosovo, I think for Albania as well, for Bosnia. So all the countries which were actually driving into Serbia to take the shots. And, there was the full court press, like all the ambassadors were there giving speeches and praising.
At the airport for the delivery.
Yeah, it was amazing, disgusting actually. And then like a few hours later, another plane lands from Russia and they said doses for 3,000 people, so maybe like up to 6,000 vaccines. They didn't even give like a proper welcoming ceremony or an explanation. What is it? It was just like, through the back entrance, another package of the Sputniks.
That's what President Barack Obama did to Bibi Netanyahu when he came to visit at the White House. He exited by the rear door by the garbage bins. Same type of thing.
Well, Philip actually went while the Russian doses were coming. He actually, he welcomed the AstraZeneca early in the morning, and then he and Zaev went riding their choppers like these ungrown, like these children who.
Man-child.
Man-child, exactly. Yeah. And he was not there for the Russian ceremony. It's really, and obviously we are at the lowest rank of importance now for future deliveries.
Yeah. But didn't the Russian ambassador bring other vaccines in a few weeks ago, and he was at the airport speaking fluent Macedonian?
Yeah. The first batch was like 3,000, but that was like a while ago, I think.
Yeah, like a month.
Nothing
ago,
in between.
Maybe.
And today we have, I think it's like the defense minister of China. I mean, I don't know if that's like the big guy. He's on a tour of the region.
Right.
Now we are a pretty small country to go visit, but somebody, like I guess, like the actual defense minister of China is in the country. And it was like Zaev and Philip made this horrible blunder, or not blunder. It's not blunder when you're corrupt and you're caught doing corruption. They tried to purchase the Chinese vaccines, 200,000 doses, through a private company, which was a shell company. We discussed this setup in the American Samoa. And apparently the deal collapsed because of this. But today they were asking all the press releases said, and we inquired with the minister if he can please speed up the delivery of the vaccines. We need them ASAP. So they were literally begging for the Chinese stuff today after botching the procurement through their corruption.
And of course, the number of deaths and hospitalizations has seen a rapid increase. I think 41 Macedonians died a day or two ago, which I think was a record for a single day death total.
That's really
as
bad.
I understand it, Filipce is not putting in new lockdowns or measures. They're just going to try and ride through this and get as many people vaccinated as possible, although, as we've just been discussing for the past 12 minutes, they've been failing miserably at that. This is something that we will just keep looking at, as we go. Here we are, second to last day of March, as we get into April, and I assume, this is probably a correct assumption, that, more and more vaccines will make their way into Macedonia one way or the other, while at the same time Macedonians continue going to Serbia and other places to get vaccinated. At some point, everybody's who wants a vaccine is going to get a vaccine. Now, in Macedonia's case, that might take a year, but hopefully sooner than that. But the reason that as we talked, the census was going to start on April 1, the in-person census there in Macedonia, and Miskolci and Vomero and others said, no, we can't do it because, Corona's on the rise and we don't have the vaccines, which is all true. And oddly, Zoran Zaev and Hristijan Miskolci met yesterday, party leaders meeting, the two of them, and Zoran Zaev agreed to postpone the census to September. But as I mentioned in the opening monologue, the Friday before, just a few days ago, Matthew Palmer, the U.S. Department of State Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, take a breath, was on the phone with Miskolci, basically telling him that he needs to get with the program and support the census. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. The Macedonians abroad, outside of Macedonia, have been able to register as we talked about last week, I think, the Albanians in Macedonia, whether it's Bujar Osmani or Artan Grubi, and even, the Albanians outside of Macedonia, the Albanians who are government officials of other countries like Alban Kurti in Kosovo and Edi Rama and the Prime Minister of Albania have been pushing Macedonia's ethnic Albanians to register, which is, of course, interference in domestic affairs, in my opinion. And so it's all very strange as to what's going on here. You and I talked a little bit, yesterday and before we got on about the State Department's demanding that that the Vomero essentially participate in this census, and now the census has been postponed. So, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I don't know what to think here. It's really, I mean, it's a rare intervention by the U.S. Embassy outside of the Colored Revolution period. They do not intervene often, especially after this. Publicly, after they got Zaev in power. They intervened in 2019, in 2020, that we need to have elections in summer at the time, when everybody was still freaking out over the corona, even though the numbers were, ridiculously low compared to now. It was a big deal that the ambassador was saying you need to have elections now. You need a politically legitimate government. And now this intervention. You need to have a census at a time when the numbers are really, really horrible, even compared to that period then. Because we've been postponing the census since 2011, and, the last one was in... Yeah. There is a reliable system of electronic, I was going to say surveillance, census taking, I guess. There is like a mechanism which counts the times you leave the country, your banking activity, your healthcare insurance, and it estimates how many people actually live in the country. They have the number and they have the roll of all citizens, which is, accurate and nothing to add there. So there is really no need for this other than, to have the Albanians, stomped their feet and banged on the table and say we are 30%, we need more rights, we need this and that and the other. And the US has been supportive of the Albanian infringement on Macedonian sovereignty, on their never-ending expansion of Albanian minority rights. Even now they're even openly talking about the point where they'll reach parity, because Macedonians in the diaspora are boycotting the whole thing. They resent Zaev. They can't stand him. They can't stand what's happening to the country. They're checking out. There shouldn't be a census of the diaspora anyway. A census is for the actual residents, not for all citizens. Let's
again. That's an important point. I was on the phone with some Macedonian friends the other day here in the States, and that was the exact point. A census is supposed to count the number of heads in the country, not outside the country, period. Any census. All right, sorry. Yeah.
And even non-citizens now, the Albanians are registering massively, in massive numbers. All the mosques across Western Europe are active, and they're posting pictures. One guy at a computer with dozens of passports, just typing in, numbers and registering on the online system, which is even further, depressing turnout among Macedonians. They say this is rigged. These are all fake citizens. These were issued, these are citizenships issued God knows how and God knows when.
Maybe God doesn't even know.
Sorry?
Maybe God doesn't even know.
Yeah, really. It's Zaev. The fact that Zaev accepted a census which will involve the diaspora, is just the first major violation of all the norms. And his deputy, Artan Grubi, he even said, because Germany, Austria, they will not allow you to have a dual citizenship. So if you are born in Macedonia, have Macedonian citizenship, go and live there, and you meet the conditions for Austrian citizenship, you need to renounce the Macedonian citizenship. And now Grubi says, listen, no worries. So long as you keep some document from way back, which when you still had like a number, like a social security number, our version of it. And, that's all it takes. You can still register even though you renounced your citizenship. So, this is the extent to which the thing has gone off the rails. And Vomero says this is first of all, crazy, the whole thing, the whole legal framework of this thing. And second of all, it's crazy that you're doing this in the pandemic. You know that a lot of people at home are going to boycott the census. This will, even if equal numbers of Albanians and Macedonians, proportionately boycott, the fact that, scared of having a person who will go from house to house, spend like half an hour with you, taking your data and then going to another house, sitting in closed quarters with you, breathing the same air and then going, going from house to house. It's incredible. It's crazy. So Vimera said, no, we're not doing this. We're going to boycott. We're not, before this, Levica was drumming up a campaign of boycott and daring Vimera to also call for a boycott. Eventually, Vimera also did, said, listen, this is crazy. We're going to protect our health. We're not opening our doors for in-person census taking. And then came the move from Palmer. No, you need to be constructive. You need to do this. You need to be involved in this process. You need a census, which again sounds all alarm bells that the U.S., especially under the Biden administration, as we discussed before, is working to further increase the federalization of Macedonia to make it a Macedonian/Albanian state, not a Macedonian state with large Albanian minority, but a federal state. And this was the situation by Sunday. On Monday, Zaev and Micko meet, and they practically counter what Palmer insisted on over the weekend.
Right. Wow. Now, so they've agreed to, or Zaev has agreed to postpone the census until September. As I understand it, assuming, now this has to be agreed to in Parliament through a vote, as I understand it, and the really small Albanian parties, the Alliance and Alternative, have said that they're not going to agree to this, and they're going to try and disrupt that. By the time this podcast drops tomorrow, that might be solved one way or the other, I don't know. But assuming the census goes forward in September, the other things that they've agreed to is between now and then, it will still be open for Macedonians abroad, outside of the Republic, to register, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
This is when Zaev says, okay, this is my win because I'm a Macedonian patriot. This will mean that we will get more. Now the Macedonians will slowly persuade them by September, the Macedonians in the diaspora to also take part in the census, and we'll have a full census of the diaspora.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I think the Macedonians in the diaspora are dead set against Zaev no matter what.
Yeah.
The only thing they'll accept is for him to step down, and for his government to step down. So I don't know. You can give him 10 years, and if he's prime minister, they're not going to do that. Is my guess right now. We'll see. Yeah. But at the same time, magically, as it were, ethnic Albanians around the planet will declare Macedonian citizenship one way or the other and will register as well. I mean, you could end up with 60% of Macedonia being ethnic Albanian at the end of the day. Well, okay, and then there's the issue, which I guess they'll work out later, because I know that some had proposed the census taker can come to your front door standing outside while taking your data and information, etc., which sounds to me, at least on its face, to be a little safer. Plus, in theory, by September, hopefully most Macedonians, all that want to be vaccinated, will be vaccinated. All right, so we'll see that. Now, Miskoski also got a couple of other wins and regarding the elections, correct? Including the date of the local elections, the use of fingerprint scanners, correct?
Yeah, Zaev and Dewey, they're ballot staffing for the referendum, for the presidential elections 2019, for the 2020 general elections. And now this, in theory, would allow to check the votes and, maybe even discount some polling stations after the vote. Voting is closed, you have the numbers, in the Albanian village. 100 people actually live there, 500 are on the list from the diaspora. 500 voted, 400 of them in the last half an hour. This is the ballot stuffing portion of the elections. And then, if you can check in if there is no actual electronic record of a fingerprint that this person voted. And we already have a record of all citizens. There is a fingerprint database. I know this shocked you way back. But yeah, we do this routinely. We're all guilty until proven innocent of something. And we can check and, we can just discount X village, which will have like 500 votes for SDSM or DUI, using these devices. So Vemero insisted on this model, and this was accepted by Zaev. There is options. They're looking into having one electoral district, which will favor the smaller Macedonian parties, harm the Albanian parties. They're talking about first past the post even, which would help Vemero immensely. They're talking about like open lists, so you can vote for any person on the list, which for some reason SDSM insists on this. I don't know what good this will do to them. But there are a number of issues here, but still, the main issue was the census, and now we're waiting to see what happens, because the Albanian parties, they were thumping their chest. They were saying, listen, we got this Zaev to play to our tune, to give us a census to our liking, and DUI was especially hard on this. They would travel across Europe, and the minister, the foreign minister, the deputy prime minister, they would go allegedly on an official visit, but they would meet Albanians in a mosque and say, listen, you all registered. They would go to Albania and take a picture with the prime minister holding the website census.org.mk, like go register there. So now they're humiliated, and they're openly calling on the Americans to block this initiative, which is now at the level of an agreement between the two main party leaders, but is not in parliament yet. So they're saying we're going to block this. And now we're going to have a major, measuring contest, and we'll see if the embassy gets involved and tries to reverse this agreement between Mickoski and Zaev. And if it doesn't, is this going to lead to a collapse of the government? Because, it's not, Zaev keeps being pushed to deliver to the Albanians on the citizenship law, on what was before this? On the identity cards, having the Albanian identity written into identity cards. So every few weeks, Albanians come up with a major nationalist issue that, and they threaten Zaev that they're going to collapse his government over if he doesn't deliver. And then when he fails to deliver on some of these things, like the identity cards, when Greece practically blocked him because he didn't want to have Macedonian written in our identity cards. Now he makes, okay, but I'll give you the census. I'll give you 40% Albanian population in Macedonia. Now if he's blocked from delivering on this, he will either even go bigger, double down, or go home. It's possible they pull the rug on him. So this is, it's up to the Americans. Or, the Americans can say, okay, listen, you'll still get your wish. You'll have a census in September under the same rules. You'll still have all these inflated diaspora numbers added onto the list. Whether it's going to be like a separate diaspora list in the census, or if we'll mix up all the numbers, all the citizens together in one big pot, we'll see. And the Americans are also saying we got Vemero to concede on some issues. So Vemero is now going to be expected to provide quorum in the parliament because Zaev doesn't have the votes to hold a session. It takes 61 votes to hold a session, and Zaev only has 62. Some of them are always sick with the corona or something happening with them. So Zaev requires Vemero to show up, just to show up for the session.
Right.
Vemero obviously boycotts, unless it's a pressing matter. So now the Vemero is going to accept a portion of the criticism from Palmer. So they have agreed to show up on several items in the parliamentary agenda. So maybe one of them is voting on beginning construction of this large new clinic, which Zaev is planning to build to practically service Kosovo, close to the, outside of Skopje, on the highway from Kosovo. So stuff like this. Zaev is also, declaring a win, but it's largely a win for Vimera, except that, Vimera didn't ask for all that much. They didn't ask to completely revamp the plan for the census, just to postpone it. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, actually. We're still not in the clear.
Yeah, and a lot of intrigue going on there, and I know we want to get to the Bulgarian elections, which are this Sunday, but before that, we've just talked a lot about the U.S. Embassy, about Matthew Palmer, etc. We have to throw in there the former U.S. ambassador to Macedonia, Phil Rieker, who at the same time that the U.S. Embassy put out that Facebook post of Palmer on Facebook, on Twitter, they put out a short video with Phil Rieker, who's very long and useless title, I completely forget. But he's a acting assistant, deputy, somewhat assistant secretary of the deputy, part-time acting secretary of state for Europe, etc., whatever. Anyway, he put out a 5-minute video, which I watched so that you don't have to.
Thank you. Very kind.
You're welcome. Yes, it's a service that we perform here on the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast, or at least this half of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. So I watched it. It was a nauseating 5-minute video in which he, because Macedonia joined NATO a year ago, so we had to have the obligatory and contractually obligated celebrations of that 1-year anniversary. So Phil was extolling the virtues of joining NATO, etc. And I'm sorry, you look at Phil, he's got this incredibly shiny dome, and it's just pointed at the very top. And I don't mean to make an ad hominem attack, but it looks like he comes from Mars or Uranus. I mean, Uranus isn't the planet, you know what I mean? Sorry. It was just nauseating. And then, not one, but 2 NATO institutions, so the Joint Force Command, JFC, don't say it, JFC in Naples, Florida, and NATO in Sarajevo, I don't know what that office exactly is, an informational office, both put out tweets congratulating the North Macedonians, quote unquote. Yeah. And so, come on, man, doing my best Joe Biden.
It was very ugly. We have this celebration while people are driving in droves to Serbia, non-NATO, non-aligned country, actually bombed by NATO. It was very close to the anniversary of the bombing of NATO in 99 to get vaccinated. And we also have, somebody thinks it's a good idea to have a Greek fighter jet fly over of Skopje. Yeah. And that this is an expression of solidarity. It's not. People do not take this here as an expression of solidarity. It's an expression of domination. And we broke them, and now we own them, and we can fly our planes over them when they're not engaged trying to chase off the Turkish planes from over our Greek islands. So I don't know if they're so idiotic in the embassy or if they are actually trying to make a point so that we get it. Also, we were discussing this over the census. I don't know if they think that Macedonians in the diaspora who resent Zaev, the whole Nordonia experiment, and the US for putting us through this, that Macedonians in the diaspora will go and register in the census because some inbred person like Palmer tells them to. And okay, I'll blip it.
That's fine.
Or if they're actually trying to have this opposite effect among Macedonians to reduce turnout even further. They say, okay, well, after 2018, I'm sure, maybe in 2018, the U.S. Embassy thought that Macedonians will vote if Angela Merkel and Theresa May and what was Mad Dog, the
Mattis
general,
and Mogherini.
Come and tell us.
It was May, Mogherini, Mattis, and Merkel, and the one that wasn't there was Medvedev, the prime minister then of Russia.
Yeah, and after this, they should realize that their pressure is having an opposite effect, and maybe and in 2019 for the presidential elections, it was clear that calls for people to vote is feeding to the boycott campaign, which is helping SDSM because those who would boycott would be more likely Vimera voters than SDSM. So there could be in the embassy a serious thinking that, okay, we build up the boycott campaign a little and we depress Vimera, our boys have wins. And they could be thinking, okay, we pressure them to vote to register in the census, knowing that, just out of spite, they will not register, and we get to our desired goal of 40% Albanians in the census. On the other hand, they might actually be realizing what we have also been talking about all the time, that if the Albanians actually hit 40 or even 50% in the census, then, all bets are off, and if we can be a NATO member 1,000 times over, this is not going to stop an Albanian assault on Macedonia to actually partition it or take as much as they can from Macedonia for a greater Albania project in the near future. And that the US is realizing, okay, listen, we still need some Macedonian pride or sense of center in this country to balance the Albanian nationalism, because otherwise we're going to have a NATO member state collapse on our hands, and that's going to be bad PR. And even though we've been killing and suffocating Macedonian patriotism since 2015, now we still need some of it to counter our Frankenstein monster we've created in Albania.
Yeah, no, to your point of having a NATO state collapse internally and be taken over by other NATO states, the optics on that would not be right.
Divided between two NATO member states.
Exactly, yeah. Ooh, that's a title. Okay, we want to talk about Bulgarian elections, but before that, last thing on Palmer, I have to say, again, this is a service to our listeners of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. Matt Palmer, not only is he the U.S. Department of State Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and a career politician, but he is also apparently an accomplished fiction writer. I use fiction loosely. He has written such books as The Wolf of Sarajevo, The American Mission, and Enemy of the Good. Check it out. You can, I think it's Random House is his publisher, but apparently he's I guess this is fiction. Maybe this is actually real life and it just makes its way into his books.
We actually need to sit down and read one of those and bite the bullet and look for stereotypical portrayals of Muslims or some other protected minority. Maybe we can cancel him.
Okay, then I have to get The Wolf of Sarajevo probably. So for that.
No, I think one of them is in the Middle East. No.
Oh, okay.
He's like a Balkan
yeah.
hand, but I think one of them is like Eastern something.
Yeah. I'll check them out. Okay, that's a good idea. I'll bite the bullet. Maybe I can find a used copy for 10 cents or something online.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so this Sunday, not only is it Easter for the Protestant and Catholic world, it is also elections in Bulgaria. And the fun thing about, of course, the Bulgarians have been focused way too much on Macedonia, for all these years, and especially since Zaev signed that quote-unquote treaty on good neighborly relations and friendship or something like that with Bulgaria in 2017. But one of their members of parliament is, to put it politely, off his medications, and put out a video the other day in which he went on a 1.5-minute rant. And the video actually is a tourist video for Macedonia, because it's got a drone or something flying over Macedonia. And this is Angel, I can't pronounce his last name.
Jabaski.
Thank you, yes, who rants and raves all the time about Macedonia. He's also an MEP, a member of the European Parliament. And in the video, he talks about how Macedonia is Bulgaria, essentially, right?
Yeah. We are the temporary, what he called it, managers of the Bulgarian land of Macedonia.
Temporary administrators?
Something, yeah, administrators. He didn't use occupation, yeah.
So the Macedonians who are really Bulgarians are the temporary administrators of Macedonia, which is really Bulgarian. Okay. Essentially, that's what he says in this video. Now, obviously, this is a incredible piece of fiction. I don't know what else. It's abhorrent, is what it is, and he's been called out actually by the Foreign Ministry of Macedonia. Correct?
There was a reaction by the Foreign Ministry and by VMRO. This is actually a very rare moment that the Foreign Ministry has actually reacted to a nationalist comment coming from Jambaski or his party boss Karakachanov.
Oh, that's right. Yes, they're in the same party. Yeah, Karakachanov, our favorite fat boy, that is constantly the Minister of Defense.
Our tick boy.
Exactly. Who's constantly, threatening Macedonia in one way or the other, etc. But so on the elections, Boyko Borisov, what have we seen any polls? I haven't.
They're at the verge of not making parliament. I think there's like a 4% cutoff, and this is why they're pushing it, being really aggressive on the issue. This was really, the video is really out there. But the more interesting thing happening here is that this party now has an actual, like a cooperation agreement with SDSM, because it was like a few weeks ago when Zaev was hard pressed by this Chinese shell company vaccination scandal. Karakachanov came to his defense. He just decided that on the day when the media was pushing the hardest against Zaev on the Chinese vaccine scandal, that he will just issue like a list of people from Vomera who may have Bulgarian citizenship, but then again may not. And he bought a few, maybe half a day for good PR or like a distraction for Zaev. So they're practically cooperating, they're working together at this moment, but they're also in the danger of not making parliament, and they have elections, Zaev doesn't, so they humiliate Zaev, but at the same time, they think they're building up their numbers in the process. Zaev helped them as well. There was a meeting in the European Parliament. There is a Bulgarian-Turkish member of the European Parliament, a liberal, not very involved in the dispute, who prepares a report, and then all the members of Parliament vote on this, and it usually says, let this country finally open accession talks, blah, blah, blah. So Zaev got several of his Socialist Party friends, like Tanja Fajon from Slovenia, and some Greens mixed in as well, to write a very critical article on Bulgaria. They said Bulgaria is nationalist, pressuring Macedonia with its historical nonsense, etc. We welcome that the Macedonian government is very reserved, restrained in its response. It's like a mature response to what Bulgaria is doing. And this actually, because the Bulgarian socialists are allied with Fajon and these members of European Parliament who submitted the article. And not only that, a former Bulgarian socialist Prime Minister Stanishev is the leader of the Pan-European Socialist Party, the PES. So actually it was his party members who submitted an article which created outrage in Bulgaria. And both the GERB party, the conservative party of Borisov, who is now, in mortal combat with the socialists, and the Vomera Bene, the nationalists of Karakachanov and Jambaski, they had a great talking point for a period of time in the most opportune moment before the elections, to say, look, the socialists, our socialists in Bulgaria, they can't rein in their allies in Brussels, they're harming us, they're issuing this article, submitting it to the parliament. In the end, there were not enough votes for the article, it fell. In fact, there were other articles from the Bulgarian side, from the right-wing side, which were very critical of Macedonia, which were inserted into the report, but the Bulgarian socialists were hurt. They're down in the polls to Borisov anyway, and this hurt them to some extent in a very bad timing. So Zaev actually burned his Bulgarian socialist friends using his European socialist friends and helped Karakachanov. So there is a very interesting linkage here.
Oh my goodness. Oh, talk about Byzantine.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, we are going to, by the time we record another, our next podcast, 109, the elections will be over. We'll know who will have won in Bulgaria and what that means for Macedonia and the region. But we do have a farmer's pick this week. We've been very good with our farmer's picks.
Yep.
And this one is it's a tourist video, isn't it? Why don't you introduce it?
Yeah, it's a video which features some of the most interesting, most beautiful sites of ancient Macedonia and of especially of the medieval period, like churches and monasteries across the country, as well as the beauty of contemporary modern-day Skopje as envisioned and built by Nikola Gruevski. The commentary leaves a little to be desired, but okay, probably our English-speaking listeners will not even understand what's going on. And just ignore the person who is doing the narration. You don't really have to. I don't have time to cut him out of the video, but
that would be a bit of work.
Skip through those parts. Just fast forward.
Yes, our Macedonian speakers will understand it, and they will go back and forth between laughter and hatred, I think, at the same time. So
yeah.
So
it's
we
really
will just we'll just put that up there and let the audience, the listeners, the viewers make their own decisions on that. So
yeah.
All right, I gotta go to work. I don't do this.
Me
They don't pay me enough to do this podcast. They don't pay me. They don't pay me or you anything. So I don't know who they
Well,
is.
I think it's rejuvenating, at least for me, all this collapse of the of the Nordonia project. It's fun having it live streamed.
Yes. By the way, I didn't realize I finally looked it up. You make reference to quote unquote Nordonia, but it's actually a town in Ohio, or it's a region in Ohio?
Oh, could be.
It is.
There is definitely a city of Macedonia there, so now we have
but
a Nordonia as well.
Yeah, right next to it is Nordonia, I believe. So anyway,
Really?
we'll have to.
What next to the other?
We'll have to look that up.
Oh man.
Yeah, we'll have to make. Yeah, I thought you
people.
knew what you were talking about, but apparently you just made it up, and it actually is true. So
Yeah. I'll have to look it up.
actually, Nordonia Hills City School District in Northfield, Ohio. Nordonia. Nordonia Hills Chamber of Commerce. Nordonia High School. Oh, you see it? Nordonia, thechapel.life. Oh, must be a church in Nordonia.
Actually, yeah, I think
It's a real
I've actually
place.
seen them. Yeah, I think I may have seen them.
I thought you got it from real life, and you just made it up, but it happened to be real life. That's funny.
Yeah, we have all these versions of Severna, Severjani, Severjania, all these mocking names for North Macedonia, Nordonistan, Zaevistan.
Sorry, here we go. Nordonia High School. Nordonia High School is a public high school in Macedonia, Ohio.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing this. Yeah, I think even tweeted about this once. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's where you got it
Yeah,
from.
now I
And
remember.
then it just became so ingrained in your brain that you forgot that it was reality.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
Yeah.
reality in two different places. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Reality
That's a wrap.
is stranger than fiction, actually.
Indeed. Yep. Good talking to you, Cvetin.
You too, buddy. Take care.
Съвременни управленци на моята Македония. Не може да живеете в 21 век, без да сте признали 20 век. Колкото повече лъжете, толкова повече истината ще лъсва. Колкото по-настървено изобретявате новата си фалшива история, толкова по-шумно ще се сгромолясват, ще пропадат фалшивите основи, на които сте построили жалкото си настояще. Колкото по-истерично мразите София, толкова по-български остава Охрид. Колкото по-силно крещите вашите лъжи, толкова по-бърз и по-ужасен ще бъде вашият край. Македония е българска, а България е над всичко. Гласувайте за ВМРО с номер 1, бюлетината и на машината.